imagine there's no heaven.
It's easy if you try. No hell below us.
Above us, only sky.
Imagine all the people living for today.
Yeah, that was terrible.
This is the worst thing we've ever created. You're going to turn it off.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of
Everyone
America.
should go out to their driveway and go out to their driveway and sing Imagine in the morning.
Yeah, that would stop the disease.
Yeah, they should take down the American flag. No more Pledge of Allegiance.
Exactly. If I found out that you had to go out to your driveway every morning and sing Imagine was the only way to defeat COVID-19, no thanks. I'll die from the virus.
I mean, I'm kind of okay with dying from the virus anyway.
All right. Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love.
The city that became the national epicenter.
Fun when we sang that song earlier.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun for everybody listening, too. I'm sure they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Just they're all getting excited for a future Seattle Sucks karaoke night. Of course, done all over the computer with nobody within 5 blocks of each other.
Well, more and more people are saying this podcast is bigger than Jesus, so.
Brian, I'm in my car outside your house, right?
Yeah, everybody's in my driveway, but we're maintaining social distancing by just being in each in our individual car.
I mean,
it was the only way we could think to do it.
It's the only way that made sense.
Broadcasting from your car is the main way information is transmitted in the 21st century. So I think, we're in good company.
Yeah, and your car is actually a disease and germ-free zone. You actually cannot be affected or impacted by coronavirus while in your car. So if you just never leave your car, you're safe.
That makes sense.
Yeah. How are you guys holding up, by the way? I mean, how are you taking this, Colin?
Not particularly well.
Not enjoying the extra time home?
Extra time at home just means I'm further transforming into a domesticated goddess. So
that sounds nice. All I ever wanted to be was a stay-at-home dad.
Well, it's a Sisyphusian a role, but yeah, it's been rough. It's definitely been rough, and we have to take it very, very seriously because we've been advised that if we were to get it, then when we have the baby, which will almost certainly still be during this quarantine, we would have to be separated. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it's the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah,
obviously. I mean, death is a high stake too, but
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it can't be good in general for Rachel and the baby on the way. How's the little one, the one that's already born, taking it?
Good job, Greg.
We've hammered it home a little bit too much. So she's talking a lot about the illness. So if you ever wondered where all of those terms from young adult dystopian novels come from, they come from tired parents, I guess. But so we're hearing a lot about the illness. A lot of her toys are getting sick, having to see the doctor, that kind of thing. But otherwise, she's doing okay, getting a little bit wound up in the house, but doing pretty well.
She's got a backyard to run around in, right?
Yeah. But we were very active before. Like we'd go do things and go take walks in parks, and now it's a little bit more difficult. So,
oh well, Now Z just has to live like any other like schlub kid with like boring lazy parents who have no time for them. So
yeah, pretty much.
I can't feel too sorry for her.
Yeah, there are worse things.
Yeah, or you for that matter.
No, thanks.
But Brian, how you taking it? How are you and Bryn holding up in the double wide?
Oh, it's wonderful. Basically, we've been making sure that every meal we cook takes at least 8 hours. So.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like I smoked a bunch of. Oh yeah.
That's the way, dude.
I smoked a bunch of corned beef the other day, so that was like a 6-hour process. Yeah, it was great. It came out fantastic.
Really?
Yeah,
I made corned beef the other day. I did it the traditional way and boiled the fuck out of it.
Yep.
But it turned out fantastic. Actually, I just finished it this morning. With some corned beef hash, but it turned out it was a really good corned beef.
Yeah, I was going for the packs that they have. We're going for like a little over $2 a pound over at Fred Meyer. So I was fuck it. And I bought about 10 pounds of corned beef.
Oh my God.
And just threw it on the smoker. And so I'm like loaded up now.
Dude, that sounds amazing. No, that is the real trick. Like, what do you got to do? You got to eat. What's the best activity? Just cooking that food. I mean, like, you can really blow like whole days. Like, that's actually like, yeah. I mean, that's how I was. I learned this trick from my dad. You know, like that. Hanging out with him, he's like a hermit in the woods, which is good because if he gets this, he will die. I mean, really, like he really will. His like respiratory problems, and it's good he's a hermit in the woods who just spends all his time literally cooking, baking, and eating. So, yeah, I've been trying to do a lot of that.
No. I was gonna say the other thing we did because Brent's like showing it to me and just like trying to throw it at me. She just received her Twilight box set that has all the movies in it, and so we're gonna be watching that. Now she's yelling across the room. Yeah, so we're gonna be watching all the Twilight movies.
Oh,
now.
Good. Well, that sounds fun. That sounds like a good time. Yeah, I wish I could join you. Yeah, we should have a screening when this is all over at your house and just eat all your smoked meats and you're gonna be out of smoke. You'll have more smoked meats in the future. Do a marathon. My life has changed very little, frankly. I feel like everyone whining about being like cooped up in their house. Like I live on a sailboat. I'm basically here all the time anyway. I don't really do anything. Loneliness is something I'm very familiar with. Not super phased about like my like normal routine in life, like falling apart and never coming back because like I've never really liked it anyway. So yeah, but have any of you guys been like congregating in large groups and having fun, like partying in parks and beaches and stuff? How about doing any of that?
I'll say, well, it is spring break, so I like to get my base tan going. Just head down to like China Gardens, just have a real party. You know how it goes.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think it's. I guess this is something I want to talk about. Is like, we're in the middle of this really unprecedented fucking catastrophe. We're talking about it just now in terms of like how we're having to sit around the house, but it is this genuinely massive thing. A lot of people are going to die. The economy is going to be fucking upended completely. Some of those people are going to die from being, after our shitty medical system loses a battle with the virus. Some will just never get that medical attention. Some will just die from some other thing because they can't get in to get medical attention. And some people will just fucking starve.
Yeah.
And
well, it's worth mentioning that Seattle Times actually just had an article talking about how the Washington State Department of Health is already having their triage discussions about who's going to live and who's going to die. And this, I mean, this is serious, It's
very serious.
It's just to put an exclamation point on your comment there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what, I mean, I think it's no surprise to any of us, and something that is getting through to some people at least, is that, this didn't necessarily have to be like this. We know, I think a lot of the talk is about the fact that, the Trump administration obviously has badly bungled this, or I don't know, maybe they're, somebody there is intentionally trying to kill millions of the most vulnerable people. Who knows? But we didn't take the early precautions. We didn't have the early mass testing. The communication has been horrendous, including obviously just like outright deflection and bullshit and lying from the Trump administration, from the man himself. But it's in that context, like, but also like even like our system can't handle it anyway. Like we have like 2 beds per 1,000 people in America, hospital beds. That number has crashed since neoliberal austerity began in this country. Italy, which is seeing like a major crisis, right, has more than that, not much more. They've also seen, at least in the last 10 years, 12 years, crushing austerity. And so they have a weakened system as well, but it's still not as bad as ours. But it's not just like the health system. So we're now in this thing where we're being told, if you're listening to this can't possibly be the only media you consume. So you're probably on some level getting sources, of people telling you that how serious this is, what the need is, which is to stretch out the length of the effect of this virus to not overwhelm our medical system, which it seems like a point we may be beyond, basically. Unless drastic action is taken, and that this drastic action is basically quarantine of the entire population outside of necessary workers to keep the rest of us alive, and trips to the grocery store. And what is interesting, so I mean, a lot of people are taking that to heart. Of course, that's what a lot of people are doing. But we're seeing like, you mentioned, there's the spring breakers out in Florida en masse. There's people, even I was reading The Stranger, someone posted that, out on some of the hiking trails, some of the vistas, like, were crowded with people this weekend. And there's, I just see a lot of people like shaming those people. And it's real easy to dunk on those dumb fucking spring breakers. But I think like you gotta take a step back and understand that this is if you know that this is serious and that this can only be curbed at this point by massive quarantine, if you understand that our medical system is going to get overwhelmed, if you understand how serious the virus actually is, the miserable death or near-death experience it's causing for a lot of people, the fact that even young people sometimes do have to be hospitalized and are even dying. If you know that, it's because you're clued in some way. You read a newspaper. Okay, well, I mean, most people don't. It's just like any other media bubble question we've had. Like, we can't get mad at these people for not obeying what is basically at this point a bunch of conflicting bullshit from all directions over the course of months, much of which early on was to downplay it. And now even here in Washington State, where at least early on, a couple weeks ago, people were praising Inslee's like tough talk on this. But he has not only not, and now he's getting criticism for not actually doing a shelter in place order. But you gotta wonder, but like, people have heard him talk and he's saying, these tough words about like, we really need to do this. You got to get inside. But you got to ask yourself, what if he did issue a shelter in place order in some press conference? Like, is that going to change people's behavior? No, because we don't have systems for explaining or telling this to people. Nobody, people don't watch their local news. When they do, a lot of people think of it probably as sort of hyped bullshit. Nobody believes the hype anymore, and people are getting probably a lot. You got to remember, like, a large portion of people just get what little information they have, what like gists and impressions they get, like fourth hand on Facebook. That a piece of information that originated with Donald Trump, or some meta commentary on what he or some other government entity is doing or saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, one, people are getting a lot of their information from Facebook, which if you've gone onto your Facebook feed and looked at anybody talking about coronavirus, that is a scary thought. But the other part of it too is that it wasn't just that neoliberalism like gutted the state's ability to respond to these things. It delegitimized in people's minds the state's, duty to respond to this. So the other thing too is, even if Inslee came out and did the right thing, the degree to which anybody would listen to him at this point probably fairly low, right? Because people aren't looking to the state in this crisis.
Right. They're not looking to the state because it is delegitimized. It's been shown to not be able to handle, to really have an effect in the world. But it's also lost its ability to communicate. And the people in charge, like Inslee and the people around him, have lost even the knowledge of what that would look like or the imagination to figure it out. If you want people to start as a population en masse, which is something we don't do in America, we don't communicate broadly. We wring our hands about like, oh gosh, like people just aren't getting the right news, the fake news, and we just have to push, signal boost the right narratives or like work on having, better media deliver better messages or whatever, or we criticize. But like, we don't have mass communication in this country. There are few options open. If you want to affect a population en masse, you're going to have to do some real concrete things. There's going to have to be ads playing, on the radio every time, on every TV station. That's not going to be enough. You're going to have to put up billboards at every place people congregate. Outside of every supermarket, you're going to have a giant board that tells people exactly what's going on, how serious it is, why it is, whatever. It would have to look like a mass mobilization. And even if Jay Inslee puts out an order, illegal order, like that's not going to have that effect. Now, the flip side is though, because I think this reality is like, on one hand, that reality is like foreign to Jay Inslee and to the people in power, the people who run our government. I mean, it hasn't even the one tool they might have is, the like cell phone like alert messages the state can use in emergencies. They could send out stuff like that. They could, that's maybe one thing that could actually get out, but they haven't done it. But I think largely like they don't even have like the creativity or the imagination to think about stuff like this. And so what I think we will see is that in their minds, what they're waiting to do in part is move to some kind of legally enforceable order, whether if that's called a shelter in place order or whatever, that skips all these things I was just talking about of how you could mobilize a message and get it out to people and explain to people and see that what they're doing now is not working and move to the next step, which is legal enforcement. And this is what we come back to on this show all the time is like, there's no fucking carrot. In this case, there's not even any communication. All they can really think to do, well, they're doing this lame communication. He's doing these press conferences and like, gosh, we're trying to get this message out, and gosh, people aren't listening. And it's limp. It's just not doing it. And so I think possibly part of the resistance to giving a bigger order is that he knows or believes, or that in their minds, the next step is cops. Is cops driving, patrolling every street, yelling at people to get in their houses, issuing tickets, who the fuck knows what, clearing places out, shutting down businesses. I mean, this is sounds like it's starting something like this in Los Angeles right now. Maybe they seem to be getting more serious in New York, but again, and everyone's hot on Cuomo right now, but it's like they got to a point there where they're getting him. Maybe they're getting him. I don't really know because I'm not there, but they're taking it a little more seriously because they're being overwhelmed. Like we're getting to this emergency point and then having to react. And I think that's the scary thing is that we're skipping our it's just like we've seen with every other function in our society for social welfare is we have no tools left but the cops. And I think that's what we're going to see here in Seattle.
Well, yeah, I mean, there'll be temptation to use the police because they're there. There's a lot of them, et cetera. I mean, we talked about like, off mic about what you'd actually have to do in a quarantine, like put, signs up on posts and stuff like that. The state doesn't even have like the apparatus to do that. I mean, what it has is cops. Like that's like 90% of their employees, right? And so it's and the police aren't going to do that. The police only do what they do, right? So it's the sort of disturbing thing. I think it's also the extent to which the American mind has been wrapped around this idea is like the stick and the punishment is the only solution. I mean, in the last debate where they kept the last debate, the Biden's theme was that he was going to war with coronavirus. They even had a question of, should we attack China for the coronavirus? Yeah. I mean, you just got this feeling like, I guess we're just going to shoot the virus until it stops infecting us. And it just seems that part of the imagination is even gone of like how to do an actual collective response to something.
Well, that's why I don't like this sort of shaming of people who are just like living their lives the best way they can. Maybe they've got some days off for the first time in a while and they're looking at their lives falling apart and going, well, fuck, maybe I'm going to go with my family out to a fucking beach. And I'm like, or I'm going to go, drink on a beach somewhere with a bunch of kids. I don't know. But because by shaming these people, by getting angry at these people who the system has not adequately informed or reached out to, you are, I think, ultimately setting the stage. I mean, it's not going to be these people's fault. I'm not trying to like blame anyone who's, but like you are ultimately, it plays into and is a part of this conservative idea, this like centrally conservative idea that we have and that the state has in our culture, that people have to be controlled, that by force. And I think that's what's coming.
When it comes down to this idea that this is, a product of individual irresponsibility, right? Because that's the only way we can sort of understand things, as opposed to maybe the reason why people are out and not taking this seriously is the completely garbled, mangled message from everybody who's in charge, right? You have the Biden campaign, saying, companies, could you please not use, bailout funds for stock buybacks or not, just whatever you want to do, right? We have the governor here saying like, it's very serious that people stay inside, but not so serious that I'm actually going to tell you to do it, so it's all back and forth. Even the mayor of Everett is at the most sort of strong kind of reaction to this, as the mayor of Everett had the whole thing about like, I want everybody to shelter in place except for essential, businesses. Oh, yeah. And massive exception for Boeing, our largest, employer here.
Yeah.
Your business is essential just because. Right. And so the message has been garbled the entire way of like, this is really important or this is very serious, except for it's not really, so they sort of speak out of both sides of the mouth. And so what a shock that people don't know how to interpret this.
Could this possibly fucking be if we have to keep assembling planes that no one wants to buy? I mean, we're not even talking about the 737, which they actually shut down for other reasons a couple of months ago. But at the Everett plant, like, still, no one wants to buy this shit. First of all, Boeing's like name is just absolutely tarnished now completely because I've been shown to just be a complete basket case of a company. They need a massive bailout to survive, which they're asking for, and the fucking global economy is crashing. I'm sorry, no one is paying on those orders. The airlines they don't pay ahead of time for those planes. They literally don't hand over the money until the plane is like goes through its like first flight and they're over fucking international waters, and then they sign the papers and like send the cash through. Like they're not taking those fucking orders. Like they're not doing it. Those are going to just keep piling up. Like what the fuck? It's Boeing's like, again, it's just like the rest of our economy. It's this fiction that has to keep going for some reason because, how else would this round of executives get their golden parachutes in a year,
Well, that and the tension for Boeing is if they're late on an order, they have to pay a penalty, right?
Yeah.
And so in their mind, they're like, well, the company's already doing poorly, so we don't want to start falling behind our schedule and be late on orders and have to pay penalties. But I guess the reason why nobody takes any of this shit seriously is every step of the way. I mean, just think of how like sort of callous a judgment that's being made here. Is Boeing's like, we might lose an additional few $1 million on late orders, so therefore let's risk killing, maybe a couple hundred people. Right? They're essentially making the same calculus that caused the 737 disaster, except for this one's with their own workers.
Yeah. Yeah, they're either they're like end of the line customers, the passengers, or they're workers. Mm-hmm. I mean, either way, they're pores relatively who don't matter.
Yeah, and the whole thing is basically like coronavirus is serious unless it affects Boeing's bottom line. Then it's not serious. And the reason why our state is the only state of the ones that have like major outbreaks, right? We're the goddamn epicenter, but we don't have shelter in place is because of Boeing. Boeing literally won't let Inslee do it, and so Inslee's not going to do it, right? But when people see this, again, we shouldn't be shocked that they don't take this whole thing seriously.
Well, right.
Because when that's how decisions are being made, why would you take anything seriously?
Well,
right?
and I know that's real. And I don't think we mean like someone's, like hundreds of thousands of people are doing that analysis exactly, but it's what you see around you. Yeah. If you're in Everett and it's like, oh yeah, Boeing's still going to work, but we're asking everybody to, shelter in place to slow down. What you're thinking is, okay, that's probably, it sounds like they're taking extra precautions and like whatever. You don't buy it's not believable. It's not fucking credible, basically. And why should you? Plus, and that's I still am skeptical that even fucking half the population of the state has even gotten a clear message to stay home. Like people are getting messages. You know where they're getting messages? From their job. Their job is telling them either go work from home, which is, in the case of white collar workers, like that has happened most places. Everywhere else has been up to now telling their workers come into work, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to change until the state orders them to do so. And so, yeah, that's where we're at with that. I mean,
yeah, my landlord did send us a letter or an email because it's a big rental company, has a lot of properties. So they sent us a email letting us know that in these troubling times that they're practicing social distancing over at their office, and that they were going to find a way to overcome and collect our rent this month anyway. So make sure we still pay it. So
super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are like, look, I think it is a reasonable thing for a person to say, if this is really so serious, how come they aren't making people stay home? How come they haven't done moratoriums on rents and stuff, and they're still letting landlords evict everybody?
Well,
right?
That's
like
what's fucked up.
Every sign from the side is it's not serious,
right?
So who cares?
And I get that the people who are getting real angry at the people out here are people who are paying attention and who know how serious this is, and I get it, because it is that serious. This is a catastrophe like no one alive has been through. It's just starting. Like this is going to kill a lot of people, and it's going to wreck a lot of people's lives and potentially entire society. This could really genuinely lead to massive political upheaval, or at least a historical change. I mean, I've been really sort of terrified by the sort of national political developments. I mean, you've got, and this has been talked about a lot at this point, I think, certainly in left media anyway, but the fact that you've got, the corporate neoliberal deficit hawk party, the Democrats, trying to water shit down and, talk about Nancy Pelosi actually talking about the national debt in this conversation. And and the first people to come out and say the things that we really need, which are immediate direct cash payments, other than Bernie Sanders, of course, are we're fucking Tom Cotton and Mitt Romney. Now, that's fucking terrifying. And it is one of the clearest illustrations of, a narrative that I think we've heard a lot, again, in left media over the last years, of this realignment of, the Democrats into this sort of deficit hawk corporate party since the 70s. But now the Republican Party, as having shifted by in the 90s, Fox News, Newt Gingrich, using the strategy of using the extreme wacko right as a part of their base, and playing them up. Then you get the Tea Party in 2010, and you get Donald Trump in 2016, and now you've got a party that was once a religiously laissez-faire, market orthodoxy, preserve right libertarian, ethos at all costs to keep corporate profits flowing and prevent any other sort of any other entities in society from having any power, to this group of Republicans now who don't give a shit about that stuff. They don't have any market religion. They're white nationalists who want to be in power and have other fucking weird ideas you couldn't even fucking figure out. And if they manage to give out this give out cash to everybody and take credit for it. And, you know, you're talking about a white nationalist racist party doing Herrenvolk social welfare. I mean, you're talking about like fascism, man. And it's a powerful fucking mixture. And there's almost no one to stop them.
Well, if you get to November and the message from Trump is, hey, do you remember how, you know, me and the Republican Party gave you guys all a check for $1,000? All the while, this guy, you know, over here, Sleepy Joe over here, was hiding in a bunker somewhere and nobody knew where he was. And Nancy Pelosi was trying to like make that $1,000 check a $200 check. You guys remember all that? And then he'll win all 50 states.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the difference between the Republicans and Democrats is Republicans actually know how to like build on support and how to like actually win elections and care about it. And the Democrats don't. Well, it hasn't been more clear than in this moment.
You know, I think it's not even just it's like it's that this is a new Republican Party that has totally different priorities and instincts. You know, this is basic. That's the fucked up thing. Is like, yes, of course, it's not like I don't think it's even political genius to come out with, oh, we need to help regular people. It is actually just pretty basic. It's obvious. It's economically obvious. It is literally, in this situation, the only thing to help the broader economy, not just regular people, because it's going to have to be from the bottom up because this is so pervasive. So they see that it's just kind of fucking obvious that this is what has to happen. There's really no question. What's fucked up is you now have the Democratic Party that is what the Republican Party was at one time, which is a party that is just completely made up of people who were manufactured to believe in a bullshit economic religion that was dreamed up to sell shitty policy, but doesn't actually make any sense. Or, you know, so like, but they are committed to it because that's who they are. And so, yeah, so in the face with them on one side, the Republicans are might just actually do the thing. Now, I don't know. Mitch McConnell doesn't seem to want to do that, so we'll see. But I don't know. It's a bad. I mean, I like stopped in my tracks when I saw when Tom Cotton was like, "Yeah, we got to get cash out like right now and every month till this is over." Like, it's terrifying. And I think the last thing to say about that sort of national politics is that I think we have to see, because like that this anything's up in the air. Look, full on fascism in America with a real base of power, or whatever. I think this has to tell us, even if ends up being futile. I mean, we have to continue this primary, and we have to try and we have to leave everything on the field. And I think that means Bernie Sanders himself has to leave everything on the field to try and win this primary at this point. And anything, who knows? Maybe it's impossible, but because look, Joe Biden is not to be found anywhere. The economy's falling apart. It could change people's calculus. And if Bernie, if he takes a new tack and actually starts attacking, who knows? Who the fuck knows what could happen? Who knows? Maybe the elections, they won't even happen. I don't fucking know. But I think if he walks away from it at this point, I think it'll be a betrayal. I mean, look, he was never the perfect guy for this. He was just the only guy. And I think he needs to really actually now make the sacrifice of going against his own personal feelings and really campaigning hard and really taking the Democrats to task. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's time to actually start calling out the Democratic Party for how shitty it is.
Or at least Joe
whether
Biden.
It's floating a corpse like Biden, or writing a sick leave bill that writes out 80% of workers. It's time to start pointing out that they're the problem too.
Yeah, and look, I think sometimes the narrative is like, oh, Sanders is this politician who's made a lot of sacrifice over his political career. I think that's not right. I don't think he's made a lot of sacrifice. I think he's actually had a very successful political career. He's been in an elected office since the early 80s. What he's had is a backbone and a moral worldview that is good, and he wants to help people, and he's been stubborn, and he's not pursued like short-term political gain because he's stubborn and he wants to do things his way and he believes what he believes. And that's what's made him the only possible person now, because he's the only person who did that over the last several generations. But that wasn't like him, maintaining his, his left views and identifying as a socialist wasn't some political sacrifice. First of all, it worked. It's worked for him his whole career. It was stubbornness, and now he needs to make a sacrifice and do things he's not comfortable with, and start throwing fucking punches, and really, and what maybe it means also fucking kissing press ass. I don't know, but he's got to do all the thing, whatever it is, to win. Because I mean, you cannot leave this country to either Donald Trump or Joe Biden, or we're just gonna die.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, I think, the only thing I would add is that there's a lot of talk that's going around during this crisis, right? About about mutual aid and stuff, which is all good. But we should caution people that this crisis shows that you actually do need a functional state. Like, we're not going to form regional committees to, handle a global pandemic, right? Like, this crisis has reasserted the value of the state and the fact that it's not the state apparatus is the problem. It's having, a capitalist class that only cares about profit in charge of it that is the problem. And yeah, I think this whole crisis to draw that into some stark relief so that we don't just become like the other side of the neoliberal coin of, everything that's the state is bad by, default. And we'll just form mutual aid societies amongst ourselves. We're going to fucking die if we do that.
Well, I think even so, there are going to be some good mutual aid opportunities that we should do, because it's good to help people, and it's good. Yeah. It's good venue for organizing as well.
Yep, that's what you need to be doing while you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Treat it like you're in Hamas.
So yeah.
Picking up your garbage to defeat Israel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so listeners out there, if you have like good mutual aid opportunities, we'll try to repost those, send them our way. Because that is, I'm now laid off again. I'm gonna have some time. I'm gonna try and figure out how to do some of that. Well, should we talk about how best to spend the quarantine? Lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah. End on a high note.
Yeah.
You got any? What kind of game recommendations you got over there, Colin?
Well, this was a big week in gaming. In fact, because both Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal came out. Mm-hmm. Neither of which I have had a chance to play, but I've heard good things about both. I already bought Doom Eternal, so I'm looking forward to playing that.
What system is that on?
It's PC and I think all of the consoles, except for Switch.
Well, yeah. And Animal Crossing is only on Switch. Yeah. Maddie and Selena, friends of the show, have gotten Animal Crossing and have assured me that it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. If you got it, we could play.
Yeah.
You can visit each other's desert islands. It's kind of a thematically consistent game for the times we're living in, I guess.
I mean, that's all anyone's posting about. I have no idea what it all means, but this is a sequel to a game that people played already.
It's a very popular game that was on Nintendo 64. I mean, this is a new version of it, but basically based off of that. Yeah.
64?
Yeah, it was on 64 in Japan, and then it came out on GameCube in America, the same game. And that came out in like 2001 or something.
And that's the last time there was one of these games?
No, there was one in between. They've come out like every 7 years, I think.
Yeah, but like it must have been really popular because everybody seems to knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's huge. I played it at the time, and it was a lot of fun. I loved it, but I didn't play the one in the middle, so I can't speak to
it. Well, I know I watched a movie about 2 weeks ago that I can recommend for Colin, given his situation. Ooh. Yeah, this is a film called Dark Circles, written by and directed by one of the guys from Broken Lizard or whatever, the people who made Super Troopers. And so this is a horror movie about a couple that just had a kid. the kid's crying all the time. They can't sleep. They're suffering from insomnia. And so they start imagining that somebody or something is living in their house and is threatening them. And it sort of spirals down from there. But I just thought, I'd toss that out there for you, Colin. I mean, for no reason, just thought you might enjoy it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out. What about
you watching, Greg?
Well, gosh, don't really play games. Movies are stupid. I hate them.
All Greg's movie recommendations. Just go back to the golden age of cinema when trains came out of tunnels.
Sunset Boulevard.
Factory workers left work.
Yeah, it hasn't really improved since then. I guess I want to give. I mean, this is maybe a bit hack, but now's the time. You've had this recommendation before. I know, everyone, but this might be the moment to finally binge Star Trek.
Oh, fuck off. Boo.
Boo. Boo. Oh, come on. Man. Oh, come on. No. Listen. I'm going to tell you about how you binge Star Trek, okay? Listen.
You don't. That's step
one.
Your
friends have told you those 90s Star Trek shows are so great. They love them.
Watch Galaxy Quest and stuff.
Oh, my God. Maybe, first of all, you can absolutely skip that
all
new
of
show
them.
Picard, which is
I can skip that one and that one.
The worst, some of the worst. Jason's been making me watch it, and it is some of the worst trash I have ever seen. It is some of the laziest, dumbest writing. It's just an absolute nothing. It's a bunch of ideas there's a bunch of mystery that they insinuate in the first episode, and then by the second episode, they're all just yeah, this is true, I have no evidence, but we're going to base everything else on this. And then they all just suddenly, in the next few episodes, you realize without ever solving any mysteries, they're all just yes, this is the truth. And then by episode 8, they're oh fuck, the season's going to end soon, we should probably just do some big information dumps to explain all of our weird conspiracy theory mythic backstory mysteries, just to dump it out, all the things that we put on our big bubble in the bubble board on the writer's room, and we'll just say it all in dialogue, and that'll be it. And just a bunch of nothing happens in between. Several episodes that literally just sit around the house. There's really only a couple of sets for the whole show. It's very has that slick, contemporary TV look, but if you know what you're watching for, it's incredibly cheap. It's there's 2 sets and then a location every week. God, it sucks. It sucks so much.
Is this a J.J. Abrams production?
No, it's not Bad Robot, but it's the same. It's what's his face? Alex Kurtzman, who wrote the Star Trek for J.J. Abrams, who also wrote with his partner wrote the Transformers films, one of the biggest hacks in all of Hollywood, who, when he got, the show, brought in the other biggest hack writer in all of Hollywood, Akiva Goldsman, who won the Academy Award for A Beautiful Mind. And it's been coasting on that ever since, which that movie sucks, by the way. Ron Howard, piece of shit.
Time for a little game
about
theory.
Exactly about fucking what's his face? Nash, yeah, John Nash.
Yeah.
Absolute dog shit. But if you want to finally binge some Star Trek,
don't do it.
Okay, my favorite. One of my favorite show of all time, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's the political one. It's the most interesting. It's the one that develops the most interesting, has the most the deepest characters, the most interesting plot lines. You can't start with that. It's like going in the deep end. No, the only way to start is with Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you are ready to go gung-ho, start from the beginning, knowing that, the first many episodes, in some ways the whole first season is batshit crazy and sometimes just incredibly comically bad and weird. But it has the first episode is a 2-hour episode, but it was 2 hour-long scripts that they jammed together at the last minute. And really, if you stop to think, none of it really makes sense and it's kind of insane, but it has like this inescapable like verve that you just, it's so like different from any other TV you've ever seen. Also, the remastered Next Generation looks beautiful. Like, it was beautifully shot and then just, broadcast like in crappy resolution on TV, and it looks great. Or if you start that and you're like, gosh, this seems like it sucks, I'm not drawn in by the like cinema quality.
Keep watching
effects.
more Star Trek.
if you
turn around,
you're not drawn in by the really like strongly optimistic vision of the future and the gravitas of these characters and the interesting colors and the futuristic sets you would want to have be your apartment building, or the like cinema quality ILM effects that like hold up to this day very well for the most part. If that doesn't draw you in because it's just so fucking weird in 1987, look up some lists of people's favorite Next Generation episodes.
Yeah, like Fistful of Data.
Fuck
That's
off.
the best one.
Fuck you. Look up some, watch like 10 episodes that are people's favorites, and
but not my favorite, apparently.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that's one where Data goes on trial and he's like, "Am I not a man?"
That's from, I believe, season 2, maybe season 1. That's Measure of a Man.
Oh my god!
Which actually, the guest appearance character Bruce Maddox, the scientist who wants to take Data like to study him, is a character. He just appears in that episode. He's a character in the Picard show.
Oh my god!
They bring that character back. So
Hollywood magic.
It's
exactly.
a different actor.
So this might be where I ruin our friendship, but I actually think the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek is pretty good. I enjoy it.
It's fun. It's entertaining. It moves fast. If you think about it for a second, it makes no sense also, but it's just full of insane plot holes. But it's fun. It's a fun, neat romp. The second one is extremely bad. And the third one's fun too. It's fine. I might even like the third one the best of all of those. Okay, but Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you get into it, you watch some good episodes. You're like, wow, this is good. There's everybody has lists of like favorite ones, the most classic ones.
No one has lists.
Then start from the beginning. Watch it. You'll fall in love with the characters. You'll wish you had a boss like Picard, someone whose sort of moral center was so clear. You'll wish you had a friend like Data, someone who so innocent and childlike, interacts with the world. You will, of course, people talk a lot. A lot of people. You've probably heard about the sort of interesting politics of Star Trek. And maybe you've heard it both sides, like people saying, yeah, it's socialism in the 24th century, or no, that's bullshit. The thing is, it's not consistent. I mean, it's a TV show, but a lot of the ideas that made the original series interesting in the late 60s continued on in that show. It started in 1987. Do paint a picture of a specifically, or I should say actually a vaguely socialist future of some kind. It is, when people are skeptical, it's like, well, they're on this like this military ship and they're going from place to place, like, and it's basically colonialism. And the truth of that is that the original show and the Next Generation is the same sort of concept. Yeah, it was sort of based on, the idea was to do like Horatio Hornblower or Master and Commander in space, so it has these naval trappings, and maybe that is not a great, perfect vehicle for like left ideas. But at the same time, one of Roddenberry's like main ideas that he developed in the original series that they stick to extremely tightly, no matter what people on the internet say, is this idea of doing exploration, not in the way that it was done in the age of exploration on Earth, but in a specifically anti-colonial and anti-exploitive and anti-interventionist ethos. So
the Prime Directive,
one of the highest laws of the Federation. they're going around and they want to meet other cultures, they want to interact with them, but they're specifically prohibited from interfering in their internal affairs. Like, and this is explicitly anti-imperial, right? They don't go and shove their weight around, and they talk about this very directly. They also are, hint about you don't see it as much because it's mostly about these characters on this, ship of exploration, but they do talk about us vaguely here and there about a society where there is no hunger, there's no want, and it's not because of the miracles of innovation and capital. It is strongly implied that there's no profit and there's no maybe not even any money, like it's some kind of utopian future, and that doesn't always make sense, and it's not always consistent. And when they're focusing on one idea in an episode, they might like miss a trick on some other idea that like maybe doesn't line up with this sort of vision of the future, but it broadly sort of paints this very optimistic vision, and it's very appealing, and it's pretty good. And then if you get and you like Next Generation and you wish it didn't have to end, but you're like, I want more of this, but like let's take it even farther and even better, then Deep Space Nine is there waiting for you. And all I will say about that is the first thing you'll think in that episode is, oh my God, you got to be fucking kidding me with these Ferengi. They cannot be main characters on this show.
They rule.
And the actual thing is, which at some point you will realize if you keep watching it, oh wait, the Ferengi literally are the best part because they are us. They're capitalists. They're disgusting, misogynist capitalists who, have to interact with other cultures, and it's hilarious because they're awful, but it's great. They're the funnest part. So, okay, that is my pitch to finally take this time to binge Star Trek. And you're welcome, if you do this, you're welcome to hit me up with your thoughts, to discuss, to refute anything I've said here or to add to it.
Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I've completely lost Greg, though. I'm not getting any audio from him.
Oh, okay.
I haven't for like 5 or 6 minutes.
Oh, yikes. Okay. Well, he's finished now. So you had a recommendation.
Yeah. Maybe I'll give you something to binge if you don't give a shit about Star Trek, which is actually something good, which is between Netflix and Amazon Prime right now. All these movies are currently streaming and should be watched. This is part of Johnny Depp mid-career, height of his powers, Sleepy Hollow, The Ninth Gate, From Hell.
Ninth Gate, yeah.
All of them are streaming. All of them should be watched immediately. Remember that there was actually a time he was actually a pretty decent actor, and he did these weird kind of other than Ninth Gate period horror pieces that are actually quite good.
Interesting. I didn't know those were available. A lot of the A24 movies were up on Prime too. Mm-hmm. Like Midsummer, you can stream now.
Yeah, best movie of last year.
Yeah, I had some book recommendations before we go.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Well, one book that rules that I read recently is Roadside Picnic, which if you like science fiction, definitely recommend that one. And another one that I would recommend that feels obliquely related to the times at hand is Cormac McCarthy's Outer Dark. So check that one out. You'll feel real great in quarantine after you read it.
I remember we were talking the other day about Roadside Picnic and some of there are some of the most like haunting scenes.
Yeah, incredible book.
Just
really,
like
truly.
real fucking weird stuff that sticks with you.
Yeah. Can't recommend it enough. All right, Brian, let's hear it.
All right. I also started leafing through this book early last week for no reason whatsoever. It's by a guy named Rajani Palm Dutt, who was a member of the British Communist Party. He wrote a book called Fascism and Social Revolution in 1934. And basically, he was looking at the rise of fascism in Europe, which in trying to explain sort of its origins and things like that, part of which he lays at the feet of liberal parties. And he has this little bit here I thought that we might read here, but he's talking about liberal parties are social democratic parties in the European context. The social democratic and trade union leadership act as an agency of the employers and of the ruling class within the working class ranks, preaching defeatism and opposition to struggle, and where the outbreak of working class struggle becomes inevitable, directly disrupting the struggle from within. And he talks about how they essentially midwife fascism into power. I don't know why I just picked it up and started leafing through it, but it just seemed apropos. So, Fascism and Social Revolution by Rajani Palmdot. Pick it up. It's a banger.
Right on.
Sounds awesome. All right. Well, was it? Oh, you know what? We actually had some patrons to thank.
Oh, nice.
Sweet.
Yeah. So Alex Warshing, Ryan Paul, Ketera G, Rebecca Brunn, thank you so much. This was delayed. I think many of you should have been thanked weeks ago, but it didn't happen. So we're thanking
one
you
or
now.
two last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe you're getting doubly thanked. In which case, if you want to be cool like them, give us $5. Hear all kinds of extra stuff on the Patreon.
Double the content.
Yep.
Yeah.
In these trying times when you just need your parasocial friends to fill the hours, we're there for you.
Yeah, and we should mention too that we're just starting out a new sort of podcasting arm, which is called Mechanical Freaks Presents. And if you sign up for Patreon, you'll be able to get access to those episodes a week in advance before they go public. And so far we have one called The White Plague that Brian did with friend of the show, Marianne. So check that out. That one's public now, but we'll be putting more of those out in the future.
Yeah. It's good content.
Yeah, and a lot of people are worried about the toilet paper shortage. Not enough people are worried about a content shortage. So load up.
I think at this point that would be impossible. It's the one thing we have more of than anything else.
I don't know. You keep hearing about peak content these days.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, unless you two have anything else to say.
No.
Yep.
It's been nice chatting with you guys. Nice to hear your voices. Hope everyone out there in podcast land is holding it together. Keep your spirits up. I know I won't, but you should.
All right. Well, yeah. Take care of yourselves, and hopefully we will catch you next week.